Hey everybody, I'm live. Hi there, how's it going? I am not drinking a cup of coffee today. I've been trying a coffee replacement called Joe apostrophe Y. It's pretty good. It kind of tastes like a hot chocolate, but it's a lot less caffeine. So hopefully I won't be talking so fast doing this YouTube live. Fingers crossed. Awesome. I see quite a few people have joined already, which is rad. Hop in the chat, say something, say good morning. I want to know that you're here, that you can hear me. Can you hear me? I'll move this microphone a little bit. Hopefully, we're okay there. Let me double check that mic. All right, I'm seeing little dots going. I think you can hear me. Hop in the chat and let me know. I'm going to change this over so I can see the live chat. Awesome. There we go. Good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are. Hi, Shelly. Hi, Deborah. Awesome. Thanks for letting me know. And thanks for queuing in. I'm so happy to see you here. This is very exciting. I still have a lot of excited energy coming back from my first work conference in years. Even pre-pandemic, I hadn't been to a work conference in quite a long time. So this was very exciting for me to go to Adobe MAX, the creativity conference. I definitely felt creative. I felt very inspired. I actually did a little bit of doodling while I was there, got some new iconography styles coming out for Inside the Square, which is super fun for me. Little background, I've always considered myself an artist. While I focus on teaching, specifically teaching Squarespace, I definitely consider myself a creative person and an artist at heart. So it was really cool to be so inspired by so many amazing things. Um, in this live today, I wanted to talk to you about some of my key takeaways from the conference. Super excited about it, but this is a live. So I wanted to encourage you, hop in there and chat with me. Ask me any questions that you have. I've got a little outline over on this screen of some of the things I want to cover to share with you. Some of the insight I learned through the lens of how can I apply this to what I do with Squarespace. So very excited about that. But any questions at all or comments, thoughts, hop into the chat, interact with me. I love this live part. Let's keep this train going, okay? All right, cool. So, these are the things I wanted to cover. I'm going to be glancing over here because I wrote it down. I wanted to stay on track today. So, I want to talk to you about creating website copy that is genuinely engaging. I got to attend a really cool talk from someone I truly respect and admire as an educator as well as a designer. So, I've got some cool stuff there. Good morning, Bridget. And then I also want to talk to you about a really interesting aspect of Adobe itself. I mean, it's a huge name, not just in the design community, but basically any community from printing to web formatting to all kinds of stuff. They have so many programs. I find it really hard nowadays to reach anyone in the sphere of computer anything that doesn't use Adobe on a regular basis, even Adobe Acrobat, right? PDFs is an acronym that we all understand. So they created a community of raving fans and got into that a little bit. So I wanted to chat about that. I also want to talk about accessibility. I attended a super cool talk. I still have the little thing here from Chak's Accessibility Unraveled. It was a really interesting presentation. I got my little handout with it too. So I'm going to talk to you about accessibility for Squarespace and some of the stats that were kind of eye opening for me. And then, last but not least, the Adobe programs I use and which ones I don't, and where I've made some changes in my business since attending Max, how I'm kind of restructuring the way that I create content here inside the Square, and what Adobe products I'm focusing on and which ones I'm not, which I think is important to pay attention to. So, very cool. All right. Yes, Bridget hopped in there. Hi, Kitty. Love all things Adobe, not just the platform, but the community and teaching. Hitting the nail on the head there, Bridget. I feel the exact same way. That was one of the coolest parts about being at this conference were the engaged conversations. The community is so passionate. There were a couple of times when I was inside a line, like literally waiting in line to go check out a software demo. And I had some of the coolest conversations with people about features and functions and applications. We were just all nerds nerding out. It was really fun. So, one of the keynote speakers, or for the Adobe Sneaks, they had Kevin Hart, the comedian, there to help with some of the sneaks and presentations of new things Adobe is doing. And he definitely was holding back on calling all of us nerds with how excited and nerding out we were about specific exciting new things that Adobe was developing. It was really hilarious. In the description, I'll put a link to any of the Adobe Max virtual shows. I think they have sneaks as well as the keynote available to watch on demand. So I'll be sure to link those in the comments. Both of those presentations were cannot miss. They were hilarious. So I'll be sure to link those there. All right, let's get into this to do list. So, website copy that is genuinely engaging. There was a speaker there on the workshop or trade show floor in the community pavilion in Adobe MAX. His name is Chris Doe. Now, if you're not familiar with Chris Doe already, he is incredible. He is a graphic designer turned educator and Emmy award winning director. He has an epically awesome YouTube channel, and I totally fangirled about it. I was there with some other Adobe Express ambassadors, and a couple of them like ran up to get selfies with him. And I'm standing there like deer in headlights, like eyes wide, like I can't even talk right now. I didn't even get a selfie with him because I was like too in awe that he's actually human. So it was really cool to see him there. But one thing that he did was he actually gave some presentations and talks at his booth. He was selling some merch just with his brand for the future and some of his hats and stuff. And he was actually giving a presentation live at his booth about creating engaging content. Now, he focused a lot on video content because that's kind of what he does now. But I thought that what he was talking about was super relatable to what we create for websites. So the big takeaway that I got from the free chat that I got to see him give at his booth there in the community pavilion was he was saying that engaging content needs to have at least bare minimum two of three things. It needs to have feelings, facts, and it needs to be fun. Those are like the three things that are required. So if you're going to create content, make sure it elicits feelings and has a little bit of fun, or has actual facts that again elicit feelings, or actual facts presented in a way that's engaging and fun. To have engaging content, you need to have feelings, facts, and fun. Minimum two of the three. If you can hit all 3 points, that's awesome. If you can only hit two, that's better than nothing. So think about that the next time you're creating content for a landing page or a home page, or even content that's specific for a newsletter sign up. I know that sounds silly, but hear me on this one. All right, newsletter sign up form. Subscribe to get our weekly newsletter. That's like basic. Everybody has that kind of a thing. But what if you changed it around to, using mine as an example, sign up for my tutorial Tuesdays to get an awesome Squarespace tip in your inbox every week? Something like that would have a little bit more of facts. And if I'm throwing in the word awesome, that could be considered a feeling or it could be considered fun. It's just slightly more engaging than sign up for our newsletter. Does that make sense? It's a little bit of a way to create really engaging copy, even down to the little details, just that one sentence to try and encourage action. So think about that when you're writing a homepage or even an about page. Throw in some facts, but also throw in some feelings. If you're helping someone write an about page for their website, maybe it's for a baker and you want to explain how the reason they're really excited about creating these things and opening up this bakery is because the smell of fresh baked bread reminds them of spending every summer at their grandma's house, how they'd start summer vacation making a loaf of bread together. I don't know, throwing it out there. That's going to throw in some feelings. That's going to bring about some nostalgia while still having facts. So when you're thinking about creating content, feelings, facts, and fun. Okay. Okay. That's the checklist. So I wrote in my description, these are 3 steps to creating copy that's genuinely engaging. Again, this was gleamed from a presentation I watched Chris Doe give at his booth, and I'll link to his YouTube channel in the description after we're done with the live. But the 3 steps are: pick that main focus, pick that secondary focus, feeling, facts, or fun, and then make it relatable. I think that's another thing that's really important too. He is an incredible professional. Again, Emmy award winning director. That's a pretty big deal right there. But the way he was talking felt like I was listening to a conversation with a friend. It didn't feel intimidating. I didn't feel like I shouldn't be there because I'm not a director. It felt like he really was engaging with his audience in a personal and relatable way. Now, if you're creating a website for a company that sells, medical software or something, you're going to need to use technical terms, but that doesn't mean you can't still be relatable. Think about the problems or issues that that software solves in the terminology that that audience is going to use. So I definitely try to steer away from using fancy industry specific terms on my own content. A great example, I love talking about button hover effects. It's like my favorite code trick, first one I ever learned and still my favorite. But when I talk about that, I'm not going to present it in a way that says you need to identify the specific selector for the active link. And once you identify that selector, this is the specific property and the alternate value that you can use. No, no, no. I say, hey, you want to change the color of that button when you hover over it? This is its code name, and this is how you do it. And it's just more relatable. It's more fun. So think about making your content relatable. That's step three. Step two is your secondary focus, and step one is your main focus. Feelings, facts, or fun. Okay. So there we go. That's genuinely engaging content. Again, I gleaned that from a really cool talk that I watched Chris Do give at his booth in the community pavilion. He's an awesome creator, has a great YouTube channel that I watch all the time, and I will link to it in the description below. Did not think to do that before I went live. So you'll get that in a minute. Okay, cool. Got some chats here. Oh, awesome. Chris Do fan in the audience. Fabulous. Okay, so speaking about the fabulous people chatting there, let's talk about community. This was something else that I learned at the Adobe conference, just a shift in perspective that I didn't realize. Now, Adobe is a big name because their software is incredible. They have amazing programs that I've used for years. I think Photoshop was one of the first design programs I used outside of Microsoft Paint. We do those little like swirls and then fill them in with colors back when you were bored and 9 years old. Yeah. So Adobe was one of the first programs I used for actually creating graphic design stuff. I used Photoshop. And I was listening to the keynote speech that was given on the very first day. I'm racking my brain for the name of the person that gave it. I believe he was the chief technology officer, but I'm not sure. I will link to that in the description below so you can watch it online. But one of the things he was talking about was the very first program he got started with, and that was InDesign. Still exists to this day. Ironically, not one of the Adobe programs I use, which we'll talk about later on. But he worked with InDesign. He started back in 1999, and he was talking about how that program was built on a plugin architecture to encourage contributions. They created basically the shell of the program and had it start doing some awesome things, but it was literally designed around a community collaborating and making changes to this program, creating plugins, which I thought was so cool. And that was something that I really felt Adobe still does an excellent job of this day, is encouraging community participation. Again, when I was standing in line for different software demos, I had amazing and engaging conversations with people because we were all a part of this community. We might use different programs, we might have different jobs. I met a gal who is a graphic designer for one of the largest dentists in Atlanta. They have like multiple offices, and she does the graphic design work for this dentist at this Adobe conference. And we were nerding out super hard about Adobe Express while we were waiting in line for the Adobe Acrobat vending machine, which is a sentence I never thought I'd say. It was pretty silly. We both got t shirts. It was super fun, but so neat to talk to her about how she utilizes that program and about her challenges for graphic design and recreating content for social, and how those are the same challenges that I have. Completely different industries. I haven't been to a dentist in longer than I'm willing to admit, so I better make an appointment for that one. But I just love the fact that Adobe fosters this community, this collaboration. And hearing in the keynote that they literally designed their programs that way, I thought was super cool. So I don't really have much in the way of how I'm incorporating that in the sense of building a Squarespace site, other than to say, I really want to focus on making sure this community of Squarespacers that I'm a part of is something I'm actively engaging in. I don't hop in the forums nearly as much as I should, but I want to start doing a lot more lives here on YouTube and on Instagram, and maybe even try that whole TikTok thing. I want to get some more community participation going because I loved that aspect of Adobe Max and of the concept that Adobe was really built on that, creating a collaborative environment and building a community. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being a part of my community and being here on my live. I would really like to explore doing a lot more of those here inside the square. I want us to focus on supporting each other and collaborating together. So if you have any suggestions on that for me, comment here on the video, send me an email. My inbox is always open, even if it takes me a few days to reply because I'm always busy, but inbox is always open. hello@insidethesquare.co. Let's talk about making more of a collaborative community of Squarespacers. I want to get involved and get us all excited and inspired together. So that was a big takeaway. Community is important and it was exciting to be a part of one. So I want to make sure that the Inside the Square community is a really awesome contributor to the Squarespace community overall. Okay. So any ideas, suggestions, you want to do more lives like this with me? Let me know. Comment or send me an email. Okay. Okay, cool. So, two more things I want to talk about. One of my biggest takeaways was that accessibility matters more than ever. And it's super important, especially in terms of the web. So, I got this fact in the talk that I went to from Chacks of Accessibility Unraveled. I'll link to them in the description below. It was a great talk. But one of the things I wrote this stat down because it's just fascinating to me. 1 in 5 people have a physical, visual, auditory, cognitive, or neurological disability that can make accessing information on the internet difficult. 1 in 5. That is a big chunk of people that can be underrepresented if you're not making your website as accessible as possible. Now, I've talked about this a bit in the past because I do think it's really important, but I realize now it's more important than I ever knew before. Like, that's a really big chunk of people that need our help as web designers. It's our responsibility to create an online experience for them that is valuable, that's engaging, that's accessible. So, screen readers are one of the most common ways that you'll see people find. I guess what? How should I phrase this? Screen readers are a really common way that people will access your website that can help people with accessibility who might have difficulty understanding what's on a page. That was a really awkward sentence. Stick with me here. So, one of the other facts that I found is that screen readers are increasing in popularity and they aren't just used by people with any disabilities or impairments like visual ones who need a screen reader, but they're used by people who prefer it. For non native speakers, where it's easy to listen instead of read, they might be using a screen reader, or anyone who prefers to listen to content in place of reading it, which a lot of us are turning to thanks to our podcast obsession. So many people would rather listen to an article while they're working on something else, maybe pull up a really interesting tutorial or PDF and have it read to them while they're going about their lives. That's a really common thing nowadays. So think about that. We've got the 1 in 5 that have difficulty accessing information online, along with the people who aren't even in that category who still use a screen reader to get information. It's more important than ever. So, how do we apply this to Squarespace? Why is this so important to think about in terms of web design? Other than making sure your content is usable by everyone, which is super important, I want to talk to you about testing your site. I always test a website before I push it live. Back in the day, I literally used to send a website link to my mom to have her like double check that I spelled everything right. That was always my first check. But what I want to start doing and what I want to encourage you to do is to download a free screen reader and have it read any page before you launch it. I'll link in the description below. There's one called NVDA. NVDA, it's a screen reader. Run that program through a web page that you've created and make sure it makes sense. You need to use different title types like an H1 and H2 paragraph text. Use those to create hierarchy and structure, but make sure you've got breathing room. Make sure you enter different spaces. You give people a chance to really digest information. Make sure your alt tags make sense. You're not just keyword stuff and you're literally describing things. Use a screen reader next time you need to test a web page. Heck, do it for one that you've already launched. I'm going to run one through insidethesquare.co over the weekend. I've got some time on Sunday, so I'm going to take a look at some of my latest tutorial posts and use the NVDA screen reader to make sure they make sense. I might actually have to start restructuring my blog. So I wanted to encourage you to do that as well. It's definitely important. So I'm seeing a lot of interesting comments hopping in here over there. Awesome. I love it. Someone say it's ironic because they're listening to me right now instead of watching the live, they're listening to the live, right? It's what we do. I am a diligent podcaster. I've got my 3 go-tos that I pop up on my phone anytime I'm writing emails or doing graphics or creating fun new codes to share with you. So I definitely understand. So I want you to think about using a screen reader to test your own site or any site that you're building to make sure it makes sense. Now, outside of that, again, alt tags are so important. Make sure they really describe an image. Don't just throw keywords in there. That's not what they're for. It's what they can be used for, but that's not their purpose. It's an alternative tag that's going to be shown if an image can't load or be seen. Okay, so double check that. But also check your contrast. This was another one that was really fascinating to me. There is a tool that I will link in the description below. It's a tool from Adobe where not only can you test the colors and make sure they have a high contrast, but you can test it for color blindness as well. That's something I never thought of. Color blindness, they will actually register colors in a different way than necessarily a color contrast will give. So, reds and greens, certain shades of them can look almost exactly the same. There were a few examples used in the presentation. I had absolutely no idea. The presenter himself was colorblind. So it was so fascinating to see that these colors that look completely different to me can actually look incredibly similar to him. So if I use the text of this red and put it on top of that green, there's no way he would have been able to read it. Absolutely fascinating to me. I had no idea. So there's a very specific tool that you can use to test for color blindness as well. So think about the screen reader, think about your alt tags, think about your color contrast, but also think about color blindness for your color contrast. So I'll link to all of those in the description. I'm gonna double check my notes. I'm gonna share Chris Doe's YouTube channel. I'm gonna share the Adobe Max keynote link as long as it's available online. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm going to share the NVDA link for this free screen reader that was recommended in the talk that I went to. I'm going to share the color contrast and colorblind test for Adobe. Okay. That's a lot of links. We got good stuff. Awesome. So anybody else find that interesting? I thought it was pretty cool. Oh, great. Jay popped in here with a question that I'm about to address about a particular program that I'm very excited to talk about. Very interesting. Okay. And also, Bridget commented about some ADA laws that require accessibility for certain businesses. She says it's a good practice to build for accessibility, and I 100% agree with you. I really want to focus on that, and I might use that as the focus for a few upcoming lives or maybe a new Thursday tutorial. I'd love to talk more about accessibility with some real life examples. So if you have any ideas on how we can collaborate for that, or maybe you want to nominate your website and I can hop in here and we can share it and do an accessibility check together, that could be super fun for our Squarespace community. So feel free to comment or send me an email, hello@insidethesquare.co. I'd love to connect with you about that. I think it'd be really fun for us here in the Squarespace community to really shine a light and put some focus on making things as accessible as possible. I think that'd be a really great thing for us to collaborate on. Super fun. Okay, last but not least, what Adobe programs I use and which ones I don't. Okay, so first up, I talked a little bit about InDesign and how they were built on this whole plugin platform, which is a super cool thing for Adobe to do. I don't use InDesign. I really don't. I had a friend share it with me a while back when I was creating some PDF content back when I worked for a larger company. It just had way too many features and I was way too overwhelmed. I want to be able to drag and drop things around, and there were just so many lines and frames and text wrap options. It's so formatted for print, and I'm so digital that it was really hard for me to wrap my brain around. And I just never bothered getting over that learning curve. I hate to admit it publicly, but it's true. I don't use InDesign. I also don't use Premiere Pro. I've been using a not free program, a program that I pay for called Camtasia to do my screen recording and to edit my videos. It's kind of like a very simplified version of Premiere Pro. But the truth is, I need the quality of my content to get a lot better. So I attended a few classes at Adobe Max about utilizing Premiere Pro. I watched some very beginner tutorials on YouTube, and I'm ready. All of my content for November and December, I'm going to be building it using Premiere Pro. There's some really cool features that are available that I didn't know about last time I tried it, and it's time for me to really focus on it. So I'm going to stop using Camtasia and I'm going to start using Premiere Pro. It's time. I think I'm ready for it. Again, it seemed really robust in the past, but I want the quality of what I make to really reflect how much I care about creating content for Squarespacers and the Squarespace community. I really need to step up my game here. So if you watch some of my videos throughout November and December, definitely hop in the comments. Let me know what you think. A little bit better, a little bit worse. It might be a little intense at first with some growing pains as I figure out exactly how to do this. But being my own video editor, I attended some sessions, I learned some things. I'm ready to take the plunge. I'm going Premiere Pro. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Now, one other thing that might surprise you, I don't use Adobe XD. I don't use XD for wireframing or formatting, and that's because I use Figma. And this is super exciting. As I was there at Adobe Max, they announced they are in cahoots with acquiring Figma. The creator of Figma was there for one of the keynotes. He came out on stage and talked about the integration of their programs. Adobe is going to be working with Figma, or at least partnering with them. They used a lot of like legal jargon, so I'm not sure how official everything is. But the fact that like the founder, creator, and owner of Figma was there on the stage talking to the CMO of Adobe made me think that this is definitely happening. So I use Figma, and Figma is going to be the focus of Adobe at this point. They're acquiring that company, so it's really exciting. I want to strongly encourage you to check out Figma for wireframing, creating prototypes, all kinds of cool stuff. There are actually a few Figma features that you can use with Squarespace, like, drumroll please, taking one of your wireframes and exporting the CSS. Yeah, it's true. You can do that in Figma. We can design like the coolest button or coolest image style or whatever and export that. And all we have to do is update the selectors and we can pop that into Squarespace. Now, can you sense a tutorial coming? Because that's going to be happening. I'm definitely going to have to do one. I've learned a lot about Figma by watching Jesse Showalter. He's another one of my favorite designers and YouTube educators out there. I attended a course he taught on Dribble a while back about using Figma that was really cool. So I'll include a link to Jesse Showalter's channel in the description here. I think I've done that in the past too. He's one that I definitely admire his work, and he's a total pro about Figma. He presents things in a very relatable, casual way that helps someone who never went to college for design, like me, understand how to use the program. So I don't use XD. I do use Figma, and soon Figma is going to be considered an Adobe program. So that's really exciting. So definitely check that out. Now, what programs I do use? I've been using Photoshop since I first learned what graphic design was, and I still use it to this day. I use it for personal things, I use it for fun things. Quite literally, I'm wanting to paint the cupboards in my kitchen. So I took a picture on my phone and I uploaded that to Photoshop, and I've been playing around with paint swatches just to see what it looks like. That's how big of a Photoshop nerd I am. So I still use that to this day. I also use Adobe Express. And this was something that I just announced on Instagram about 30 minutes ago. Yep, I went live on Instagram right before I hopped on here to share that I am officially leaving Canva to use Adobe Express. Now, the programs are similar, but Express is drastically different in some of the features that I really need. One of the features that is super cool for me that we talked a little bit about at Adobe Max, I got to attend a demonstration of some of the upcoming features they're doing, as well as see what the program is really designed to do. It was so cool to get that hands on experience. One of the things it can do is this resize feature, which is so important for my weekly tutorials. So every single Tuesday, as you know, because you're, watching this here on my YouTube channel, I've got my brand new tutorial video coming out. Well, with each tutorial video, I also need a blog thumbnail. I also need a Pinterest pin. I try to do one or two for each of them. I also need something to share on Instagram, whether it's a story or a reel cover or a carousel post. I create multiple graphics for each tutorial. And using Express, I can literally build the YouTube thumbnail and I can click this resize button that's going to change the size of it, but not just like shrink stuff down and put it on a new one. It actually uses some AI to reformat and restructure it so it looks great on those other ones. I don't have to sit there and redesign and drag things around and try new things. It literally looks amazing right out of the gate. So I was beyond excited about that. So on that note, I have a tutorial about using Adobe Express for creating Squarespace graphics, specifically page backgrounds that will look great on mobile. I built a template in Express to teach people how to use it to build backgrounds for Squarespace that are highly optimized. They look great on every device because when it resizes for mobile, it's still going to look good. So check out that video for sure. I'll link that into the description below. I've got a lot more to teach about this Adobe Express program. I am so super excited about it. I really got like amped up attending these presentations and learning from some of the other Express ambassadors. There's so many cool things that it can do. It can schedule directly. I like wrote it down here on a post-it note for my Instagram live. The schedule direct feature. I can't forget about that one. I usually use Later. So I pay for Canva and I pay for Later and I try to sync them up. I think Canva has a schedule feature as well, but I never quite figured out how to use it. but I've got it all set up in Express now. So I'm good to go there. So that part's really cool. But also, it can do amazing things with fonts. They have this really cool font feature that I used for the thumbnail of this video where it does the cutout text and you can see the background behind it. Short story long, all right, my YouTube thumbnail game is about to be turned up to 11. I found such cool features that I cannot wait to use in Express, and you're going to be seeing them here on my channel. November and December, using Premiere Pro and using Express, like you're going to see the graphics really improve here for Inside the Square. The quality of content is going to be awesome. So I really want to encourage you to check out that program. I will link in the description below to it, but I'm also going to be doing some more tutorials about it. I'm actually toying around with the idea of creating a new channel specific for Adobe Express. So that's very exciting. It's going to be Let's Express It. I have to get to 500 subscribers before I can name it. I'm going to go ahead and open up a tab here so I can pop it into the chat. If you're interested in learning more about Adobe Express, I want you to join me in this new channel. Let me see if I can open this up really quickly here. I'm going to try to open it up and hopefully I'll still be going live. You can still see me live. Okay, we're good. All right, awesome. I am going to share a link to this new channel in the chat. If you want to learn more about using Adobe Express, how to use the program to add your create content specifically for Squarespace, there's the link. Trying to get up to 500 so you can join me there. It was such an awesome program. When I was at Adobe MAX, I learned so much more about it than I even knew going into it, and I already felt like a pro. So rest assured, I've got a lot more to teach you about using that program to create Squarespace graphics and all other kinds of cool stuff. So check out my new channel because I want this channel to be Squarespace focused. I thought it'd be a good idea to separate the two. There will be some crossover for sure. And hopefully, using Premiere Pro and all the things I learned about Premiere Pro at Adobe Max, I can create some videos that definitely cover both. But check that out. I'd love to have you there to follow my creative journey when it comes to the actual graphic design that we're going to be creating with Adobe Express. So, those are my big takeaways from Max. Let's recap. That's my jam here. All right. 3 steps to website copy that's genuinely engaging. First step, picking your main focus. Second step, that secondary focus. And then your third step is to make it relatable. Now, what do I mean by focus? You need to have 2 of the 3: feelings, facts, or fun. That's what I learned from watching Chris Do give a live presentation at his booth at the Community Pavilion, and I will link to his YouTube channel in the description. Second, how Adobe created a community of raving fans. It was very clear that a collaborative community was essential to creating the products that they have today and was one of the best parts of the entire experience of Max for me was that community. They did that within design. They had a plug-in architecture to encourage contributions, and that's still happening today. They still foster a collaborative community environment. So I want to do that here inside the square. I want to do more lives. I want to work with you and with the community to really help all of us learn how to be the best Squarespace users we can be. So if you have any ideas, reach out to me and let me know. hello@insidethesquare.co. Let's chat. I want to collaborate. Okay. The third takeaway from Adobe Max: accessibility matters more than ever. Not only do 1 in 5 people have some type of physical, visual, auditory, cognitive, or neurological disability that makes it difficult to access things online, but even people that don't have necessarily a disability or don't identify as that need to use screen readers to make websites more accessible. One of the best examples I saw or was given to me in this presentation are the people who love podcasts. They might pull up an informational article on your website and have a screen reader read it to them while they do other things. Now, that's a super common thing. Also, non native speakers, they might do a better job retaining information by listening rather than reading. So, the next time you build a website, I want you to use a screen reader to have it read back the content for you. I'm doing that on Sunday myself. I'm going to take the latest articles I published on my tutorial blog and I'm going to have a screen reader read it back. I might need to restructure my blog pages. So keep an eye out for a tutorial about that if that's what I'm going to do. But I'll link to the screen reader in the description. There's a free one called NVDA that was recommended to me by the presenter. So I'll be sure to link that in the description below. Use the screen reader on a page that you're about to launch or one you already have. Make sure it makes sense. Text hierarchy can help with that a ton. Make your alt tags count. Super important that they're readable. But last but not least, about accessibility, screen reader aside, check your color contrast. There's an Adobe tool that will help you check color contrast, not just standard color, but also for color blindness. I was so shocked to see how drastically different colors can appear to someone who's color blind in terms of contrast. So definitely make sure that the colors you're using on your site, specifically for text and background, are really they have a high contrast, that they're actually readable. So I'll link to that in the description after I sign off this live. I'm not going to sit here and Google in front of you. Okay. And then last but not least, the Adobe programs I use and the ones that I don't. I don't use InDesign. I don't use XD, and I don't use Premiere Pro, but I will use Premiere Pro. My videos are getting better. So if you have any tips on Premiere Pro, or maybe someone you follow on YouTube, share with me. I'd love to see it. Also, in regards to XD, I do use Figma. Figma is a program that Adobe either has acquired or is working on acquiring. There was a big talk about it at Adobe MAX. Super excited about that. I follow one main Figma user, Jesse Showalter. He's taught me a ton, but I'm going to start exploring Figma through the lens of how can we use that tool to build better Squarespace websites. So expect a few tutorials about that coming your way. And then the Adobe programs that I do use Photoshop and I do use Adobe Express. I'm going to be making more content about Express. I will do a few tutorials that are specific to creating graphics for Squarespace. I already have one and a few more planned, so those will be on my channel. But check out the link in the chat. I'll paste it again right now. This is a channel I'm starting that's just for Adobe Express. So if you want to dig more into the graphic side of things, head on over there. I want to make sure inside the square stays Squarespace focused. So I'm kind of separating those two things there. I'm going to take on that challenge. Hopefully, with the skills I'll learn in Premiere Pro, it'll be really easy for me to make multiple videos every single week. Fingers crossed, I've got this. All right, that's my recap. I've got links to include. I really hope that this was helpful information to you. As you can tell, I am pumped. I haven't even had coffee today. I'm using my little coffee replacement for the last few days. I'm just like this jazzed and excited about all the creative things I learned at Max. There was so much cool information, cool design ideas. I'm inspired and really enthusiastic about a lot of the opportunities we have with these amazing Adobe tools. So thank you for joining me live. I really appreciate having you here with me. I see we've got over 20 people that joined. I can't believe I almost talked for 40 minutes. This is wild. I don't usually talk this much at once. So thank you. Thank you, Sprint Websites, Kathy Parks, Nancy, Marty, Bridget. You're all so wonderful. I appreciate every one of you. And so does Ripley, my adorable little coworker today. She's sitting here inside my speaker box. It's like her favorite spot to chill, which I think is really cute. I'll have to post a picture of her on Instagram later. So check me out there. I will link to all those resources in the description. I'll go ahead and call it for now. I hope you're inspired. I hope you're ready to connect and collaborate with me. Lots of fun stuff coming your way here from Inside the Square. I'll go ahead and end it now. But most importantly, have fun with your Squarespace website. Bye for now.